I am back for part 3 on my countdown to World Finals 25. This will be the World Finals that I will be visiting, and I can't wait to meet all of you ArenaPod fans at the pit party. And I have a special announcement for everybody that plans to go on the 4th of July pit party, so stick around at the end of the video for that. The way that I'm counting down to World Finals 25 is looking at every single World Finals from the beginning all the way up to the modern day. Last video I did end off at 2015, which was a pretty forgettable World Finals. You want to talk about forgettable? Let's look at 2016, as it's in the same ballpark as last year, where you can't really watch this World Finals from Monster Jam without the memberships or just resorting to fan footage. So that's exactly what I did, resort to fan footage. The track was almost the exact same as last year, just green and yellow because of St. Patrick's Day weekend. Young Gun Shua had Scotty Lidico and Dragon win and be added to the main field. And on the main show for racing, Tom and Dennis had a close race where Dennis missed the turn and Tom missed the racing lane. However, Tom won the race, and that was the final time Tom and Dennis ever faced off in a World Finals. But the finals came down to Morgan Kane and Gravedigger, who was facing off against the defending racing champion Todd LeDuc and Metal Militia. Yet Morgan still managed to pull through and brought himself in that beautiful orange Gravedigger to victory lane. I just really love that orange Gravedigger body so much. It's almost like a Halloween version. I love it. The racing encore had Tom Mentz and Max D jumping over 5 trucks, and after successfully clearing all 5, he aimed straight towards the backflip wall and performed a successful backflip. Freestyle's biggest hitters early on were Colvinard and Gravedigger with this cool save, Chad Fortune and Soldier Fortune with almost the entire run on front wheel drive, Scott Lidico and Dragon with whatever the hell that was at the beginning. Colton Eichelberger and Max D actually lost a wheel, having it nearly go into the stands before he rolled it over. Morgan Kane broke a rear on the big center jump, ending his chances at a double down, and Bari actually threw it in reverse going into Thunder Rally and sent it across the pod before clearing it. Wait, can I even say ArenaPod yet? I don't think. Screw it. Dennis Anderson and Gravedigger went out, got a save, got another one, and on the loud pedal, he threw his truck into a donut and hit the backflip ramp. He didn't get a flip, but he still rolled over. The rest of the competition was good too, such as Jim Culler and Avenger that rolled over on top of the pod, trying to donut the truck. I wonder how the audio of this freestyle sounded like. Yeah, videos of this freestyle will be taken down due to copyright. However, moving on from that, Scott Buto and Team Hot Wheels Firestorm did a total of 1, 2, and 3 backflips. Meanwhile, Cam McQueen and Northern Nightmare landed the corkscrew before crashing and ending the run. Adam Anderson and Gravedigger performed a really modest run before going for the backflip as he entered bonus time and rolled over. In a controversial decision, Adam took the lead. Not even Chad Tingler and Alien Invasion, Damon Bradshaw and Monster Energy, who in my opinion had a much better run than Adam, Tom Mentz and Max D, Todd LeDuc and Metal Militia, or Mike Vaughters II in Overkill Evolution. All of them couldn't take him down as Adam won freestyle, except this time it was in his father's truck. For the freestyle encore, Soldier Fortune Black Ops, and other trucks with military branches on the side of them did donuts, and all 5 military trucks performed simultaneous backflips off the backflip wall, while Soldier Fortune and Soldier Fortune Black Ops backflipped off the backflip ramp in the back of the stadium. That was a tongue twister. This World Finals was good, but really took a downturn. The freestyle win was robbed from Adam's father Dennis Anderson or Damon Bradshaw. This really dampens the freestyle competition, but there was no change in the results now 10 years later. There was a new racing champion that somehow defeated last year's racing champion, and that is very much a storyline right there, and something to remember. However, it fell apart with freestyle, as this is a prime example of a disappointing champion. No disrespect to Adam, of course, but he didn't make it into bonus time, and he somehow still won over everyone else. I'll move on before I start ranting, but this World Finals is getting a 7 flat. Now we have World Finals 18 in 2017. Though this is the first World Finals without Tom Meents driving, and this was the start when every single duplicate truck looked the exact same with no difference other than chassis and flags, is also in the talks of one of the best. And do I agree? Well, let's take a look. The track kept the same colors, yellow and green for St. Patrick's Day, and for the freestyle track, the pond was actually brought back. Starting off was the Young Guns Shootout, no, the Double Down Showdown. Yeah, they renamed the entire competition and this truck Gunslinger to Slinger because of the G word. Anyways, that's kind of dumb, but putting that aside, the final round of the Double Down had Eric Swanson in Obsessed and Tristan England in Earthshaker, and Tristan England took home the win after Eric flipped over, giving him his first chance at the main field. When the main show's racing finals happened, the two trucks that faced off were Ryan Anderson and Son of a Digger, and Tyler Menninga and Gravedigger. In a photo finish, Tyler Menninga was edged out by Ryan Anderson, winning his first world championship, joining Dennis Anderson and Adam Anderson as world title holders. For the racing encore, Neil Elliott in the beautiful stunt truck did the first ever forward momentum backflip that went over Son of a Digger to celebrate 25 years of Monster Jam. After the stunt was completed, a total of 77 trucks flooded the track as a symbolic thank you to the Monster Jam fans. And to be honest, it made me kind of emotional watching it the first time. The next day for freestyle, the fans got to judge the competition for the first time, and yeah, let's see how this one goes for the next few years. I'm about to have fun. Bryce Kenny and Mohawk Warrior did a sidewall on top of the pod and went into the pond. Randy Brown and Gravedigger 29 did a somersault, jumped into the fountain, and had a scary moment at the end where he caught fire. When the heavy hitters came out, that's when it really started to pick up. Jim Kohler and Avenger celebrating his 20th anniversary with this amazing pickup design, might I add, sent it into the air, performed a backflip, got a flat left tire, and kept his foot on the throttle the entire time until his truck couldn't go anymore. Rosalie Raymer and Wildflower went for the big air at the start, a backflip on the backflip wall, and attempted a corkscrew. And even though she was unsuccessful, she caught the attention of everyone in the stadium that night and absolutely made her presence known. And the moment we've all been waiting for this entire series that I'm doing, Lee O'Donnell and VP Racing Fuel's Mad Scientist shook the entire world after a backflip. He got a slap wheelie off the pod, and a few seconds before his run ended, he sent the truck into a front flip over the pond and landed it. Lee O'Donnell said in an interview later on that Charlie Pauken was the one who inspired the move, and to no surprise, he took the lead with a 9.355. Big hits such as Brianna Mahana and Scooby-Doo, and Cam McQueen and Northern Nightmare, who both attempted corkscrews, Morgan Kane and Gravedigger, who bounced over the barriers after a backflip, Scott Buto and the Team Hot Wheels Firestorm did a total of 1, 2, 3, and 4 backflips, and even Neil Elliott, who was the first to land the reverse backflip, nobody could beat Lee O'Donnell as he won freestyle with the first ever front flip in competition. For the encore, this was Gravedigger's 35th anniversary encore. All three Andersons, Adam, Kristen, and Ryan did backflips at the start, and then the entire Gravedigger team at the time went out and trashed all their trucks until they couldn't go anymore. I hate to be the one to follow the crowd, but I think this World Finals was amazing. Not only did we have moves that have never been done before and were conquered, but we also had 2 new world champions for racing and freestyle. There is of course controversy over duplicates looking the same, which to be fair nobody likes, and the winner of freestyle, whether it should have been Neil or O'Donnell, with me personally thinking Neil as my winner, as that run was more memorable, but I do understand why Lee O'Donnell won. I went into this World Finals expecting this one to be a terrible, especially after 2015 and 16 were both duds in my eyes. However, no. I do understand why some people may think this event is overrated, but I like this World Finals, and giving this event a 10 out of 10 is a hill that I am gladly gonna die on. The World Finals in 2018 was the last ever World Finals event to take place in Sam Boyd before it would be changed to a rotational event and moved to Camping World Stadium next year. And how did this event go? Well, first off, you can't even see actual official footage without the membership, so we are resorting to fan footage. Let's go, everyone. The start of Double Down Showdown, the finals came down to Corey Rummel in Pirate's Curse and Brandon Vincent in Gravedigger. Vincent red lit the race, causing Corey Rummel to win and have the spot in the main field. Something I noticed rewatching this World Finals is that they actually did intros going over the racing lanes, instead of just doing complete laps around the track. And honestly, I'm surprised they didn't do that sooner. It looks way better. But anyway, racing in the maiden field had a lot of wrecks, with the worst being from Cam McQueen in round 1, where he red lit and to insult to injury, he lost control and absolutely rolled over. In round 2, Colvinard and Black Pearl broke the tie rod coming down Thunder Alley and lost control going into the wall. But it all came down to the finals, where we had this exciting and nail-biting final race between Gravedigger and Gravedigger. And Gravedigger won the race. Okay, for real though, the race was between Adam Anderson and Tyler Menninga, last year's runner-up. But sadly, Tyler was beat by both brothers twice in a row, and Adam Anderson would claim the racing championship for that year. The racing encore was for Maxi's 15th anniversary, and in it, the trucks performed moonwalks on the lip at the end of the track and off the backflip. 2 trucks did reverse flips, and the last 3 trucks attempted a forward momentum backflip each. Maximum Destruction failed, Candy Apple Max D failed, and the Blackout Max D also failed. However, the driver Tom got massive air as a result of that broken ramp and absolutely destroyed his truck. Not the best encore, and it kind of recycled from last year. However, it was a good celebration for a legendary truck. Before freestyle, Heavy D and Gravedigger and Diesel Dave and Max D came out and performed a donut competition. Though Gravedigger was the actual winner of this, Max D was humorously declared the winner. Yeah, a bit random, but there's nothing that takes away from the event, so I thought I'd mention it. Freestyle started off strong. Colton Eichelberger and Max D started off with a good run with good momentum. BJ Johnson in Gas Monkey Garage attempted a corkscrew. He landed on all 4 BKT tires, however, I don't know if that actually counts as a corkscrew. Justin Sipes and Megalodon went for a swim and immediately shedded the entire body after a somersault. Bari Musauer and Zombie went back into Thunder Alley and came out the other end and sent it back into the stadium. Scott Buto with this absolutely beautiful Hot Wheels body didn't even make it past 1 and 2 backflips before crashing. Just imagine if he did 5 backflips. I don't even know how you fit that many in a 1 run. Charlie Pocket and Gravedigger had a funny moment where Charlie, attempting to save his truck, almost went into Thunder Alley and he crashed. Tom Mentz and Max D almost doing a near perfect impression of Scarlet Bandit in 2008. Todd LeDuc and Mutant had a huge jump on the center, and with his right rear locked up, it caused Todd to do a complete 360 over the pod, taking the lead. However, the last person up and also after Mutant was Ryan Anderson in Son of a Digger. He landed the first ever backflip to moonwalk combination move, and when the clock hit 0, Ryan hit the backflip one last time and sent it off the center ramp and had this absolutely crazy rollover crash, making Ryan Anderson the 2018 freestyle champion along with his brother, who also won a title. The encore was basically a giant movie advertisement for Rampage, a movie based on the 1980s video game of the same name. 3 trucks running the 3 main monsters of the movie came out and smashed buildings that are more than likely made out of styrofoam. 2 Soldier Fortunes without any logos chased them down for a bit as they both did backflips. And the buildup of the entire encore was Tom Mentz attempting a double backflip. However, he did almost land it and it was still pretty cool regardless. This whole encore was basically a giant movie advertisement. Does that mean I hate it? No, actually. Surprisingly, rewatching it actually gave me goosebumps. And the attempted double backflip was, of course, impressive as always. And finally, to leave this chapter of Sam Boyd Stadium behind, the entire pit party, it seems like, flooded the entire field as a symbolic thank you to the fans and a final goodbye to Sam Boyd Stadium. In 2019, we had the first World Finals to not take place in Vegas. Instead, it was in Orlando, Florida. East Rutherford was planned, but was canceled for unknown reasons, and I'm so sorry, Thomas Frasco, I know that must hurt a lot. And the first to take place in May instead of March. This World Finals was also known for having the most world titles, having 7. Racing, high jump, two-wheel, freestyle, ATV racing, speedster racing, and speedster obstacle course. Okay, yeah, these last 3 are for triple threat and aren't even monster trucks, so I generally don't care about them, and I don't really want to waste time, but if you're curious on the champions that were crowned on that large arena pod slapped in the middle of the pit party, ATV racing was won by Blake Ranger, speedster racing was Armando Castro, and speedster obstacle course was by Matt Cody. I'd love to talk about this show, but we can't go any further without talking about the track. On September 5th, 2018, Monster Jam released a video of the track. It was Vegas style and featured a red and blue color scheme instead of the normalized yellow and green. And the most insane part was the starting line being up in the grandstands. Many people at the time, including myself, thought that this wasn't gonna work, but in practice, when the event came to be, it actually worked out quite well and gave us entertaining races. And now fast forwarding to May 10th and 11th, 2019, this is where I can finally get into the event. The Double Down Showdown, or now at the time called just Showdown. Really creative, Monster Jam. Anyway, the finals came down to Lindsay Reed and Scooby-Doo and Tony Oaks and Soldier Fortune Black Ops, to which the underdog Lindsay Reed won Showdown, earning her spot in the main field, and becoming the first woman to win this competition. But before we get into racing, we had the first ever two-wheel world championship, and this is how it worked. It had rounds, and the highest scored move in any round would be your final score. It's a bit confusing, and I don't really know why they picked this, but I digress. The best hits were done by Neil Elliott with this absolutely crazy flip, Tristan England balancing his truck and walking it across the track, and the winner was Tom Menton Fire Max D, who did a maximum moonwalk, popper off the center jump, and he finished off with a really fast cyclone that made him go onto his roof, quite literally. And that would earn Tom his 12th world title. But now we have racing. Racing was crazy, especially with the new track. Some crazy races that I could think of at the top of my head was when my favorite driver Camden Murphy and Bakugan Dragonoid and Randy Brown and Gravedigger, both of them clipped the turning pods and Camden stole the win. Round 3, Tyler Menninga and Gravedigger and Bari Musauer both rolled over after their race, with Bari almost getting eliminated because of her steering issues, but he managed to fix it, and he was still in the hunt. After my favorite driver got DQ'd because he red lit, Bari would actually make the finals. In the semifinals, Adam Anderson also lost traction in the turn and lost against Jimmy Cretin and Bounty Hunter, who would make it to the finals too. If Bari won, he would have been the first African American driver to win a world title and would also go on to win in his hometown. However, Jimmy Cretin has been in the World Finals more times than anyone can count, and every single time, he would always lose. And all the losses would be worth it if he finally won it tonight. Both drivers had everything to gain and lose in the finals, however the trucks lined up, the lights turned green, and as both trucks went down the hill, Bounty Hunter went wide, and he tried to chase Bari down, but it would be Bari taking the racing title. Why is Bari's light red? And he's disqualified? Yep, later explained by Bari himself. What happened was that Bari was lining up, and as his truck rolled out of the line for the Christmas tree, that caused the light to go red. So that automatically gave the racing win to Jimmy Cretin and Bounty Hunter. And after 18 years of losses, Jimmy would be finally both a freestyle and racing champion. That chassis that Jimmy built for racing, and he finally got it done. Much love to Jimmy for finally getting a racing title. The encore that night was for Fire and Ice. Every Fire and Ice truck, including some new ones like Soldier Fortune Ice and Gravedigger Fire, just did jumps off the center, performed simultaneous donuts, and simultaneous backflips. And to be honest, it was pretty really forgettable, and I wouldn't blame you if you're a diehard and you also forgot about this one too. But moving on to the next day, we had a new championship called High Jump, and yeah, that's a thing now. All you do is just pin the throttle and try to go as high as you can. Why is this a world championship? We had some rollovers like with Tom Mentz and Maxi Fire, Scott Buto and El Toro Loco Ice, Todd LeDuc and Monster Energy, Camden Murphy and Bakugan Dragonoid, who got second and lost against Cynthia Gautier in Blues Clues. Who would walk away as the first ever high jump champion and be the third woman ever to claim a world title if you count Lindsay Reed with the showdown. So technically second, but I don't know. Getting into freestyle, the second truck out was Lindsay Reed and Scooby-Doo, who did a backflip and sending it across the jammer and getting a wheelie on top of the pod. She did a cartwheel save and ended really strong run and set the bar for the entire field. More hits were done from Justin Sipes and Megalodon with this save at the start of his run. Brianna Mahan and Whiplash, who had a really strong run with a ton of saves, a cross thread on top of the center and got another save, and having a flat rear and having only front wheel drive, that completely ended her run. Becky McDonough and El Toro Loco would be the first to attempt the mini flip. Randy Brown and Gravedigger would also be the first to even dare hit that red ramp, and what happened was basically a repeat of what Dennis did in 2014. It's a cool idea, but it's yet another example of another poorly designed obstacle. Bryce Kenny and Mohawk Warrior had this cool save, got shut off because of fucking debris, and he also backflipped into a crash. Camden had a really strong run with a clean backflip to moonwalk combo, and at the end of his run, he absolutely fucking tore his front axle out and had the whole front differential upside down. However, it only got second to Lindsay Reed, who was still in the lead. Jesus Christ, what the fuck is Judge Zone? Heavy D and Brodozer went over this dirt pod, got a save off the center, and after that little wow moment, Heavy D hit a backflip and ended his really awesome but short-lived run. After a short little rain delay and fixing up the track, Todd LeDuc and Monster Energy sent it off the blue ramp, catching the biggest air of the night and somehow not breaking his truck. And he just continued to run until the clock hit 0. Tom Mentz and Maxi Fire followed that up with the same hit as Todd, but he didn't last very long at all. The final truck to take down Lindsay Reed would be Ryan Anderson and Son of a Digger. Ryan did almost crash after doing a wheelie over the fire truck, but Ryan got bit by his own truck and rolled over, handing the win over to Lindsay Reed and Scooby-Doo, who was the first driver to both win the showdown and a main title in the same weekend. Closing out the 20th World Finals was an encore where Colton Eichelberger jumped over 7 trucks, and to be honest, it looks like he could have jumped over at least 9 or 10, meant to be a passing of the torch from Tom to his son. To be honest, this was a weird one to rank. This had 7 titles, so ATVs, speedsters, I don't really care about. Two-wheel was okay. High jump is just high jump. Enough said. I really liked the racing, and Jimmy finally coming out of the other side and getting a title in racing, that's a good storyline. However, it kind of falls apart in freestyle. I don't care how controversial this is gonna be, but I'm just gonna say it. Whiplash or Bakugan was robbed. It's definitely not Todd LeDuc. I think this run is really overrated. I gave warnings about my opinions, right? Camden and Brianna both had better runs than Scooby-Doo, and unfortunately that ruins the show a little bit for me. Now rewatching this, it really feels like racing is doing most of the heavy lifting, as everything else was just bad or okay. That may be me getting salty over Camden getting second in 2 competitions. However, it was a good show, and it was a good starting point for the exiting of Vegas. I'll give it a 7.5. Only reason it's not a 7 flat is because racing was really good. When the COVID-19 pandemic happened, we had absolutely no world finals, let alone normal events. All tours in March 2020 were canceled, and the world finals set to take place May 2nd and 3rd was also canceled. And a little off topic, I just gotta vent a little. Another World Finals was also canceled, that being Monster X Store, and it was set to take place that summer, but it it was later canceled. That's right. In some alternate universe, this could have been my first World Finals, but because of Hurricane Douglas and COVID, all of that was taken away. But anyway, back on topic. There was a 2021 tour in Monster Jam, however, nobody got any World Finals action for a whole 3 years until the event came back in 2022. When the World Finals was back for its 21st edition and its 3-year hiatus, the decision was made to revert from Vegas style to over-under. This was controversial among fans, and even I myself didn't like it for a period of time. However, the event was once again in Camping World Stadium in Orlando, Florida, and the spot where they could have had the elevated start was completely gone because of recent renovations at the time. Oh yeah, and also, this was my first World Finals. I flew all the way from Honolulu, Hawaii to Orlando, Florida to see the grand return of this historical event. Once I did get there, there were many alerts going off for weather, and racing did start off with a rain delay. And a surprising but also a good decision was the 30th anniversary encore, which was done before racing. Tom Mentz in the stunt truck did a reverse forward momentum backflip to promote a new playset. He didn't land it, however Tom nearly knocked out every single foam, whatever these things are. Blake Ranger and Max D went out and did a test pass, and when that was done, racing immediately took place. And I can tell from the stands they really weren't taking any chances with the rain, as they were moving quickly through the field. There was this one race where Tom spun out and Weston missed the jump and smashed into the wall, though it is scary to think what could have happened if Weston hit Tom. When the finals came down to Ryan Anderson and Brandon Vinson, that's when the rain really started to downpour. Instead of delaying the race, the lights turned green and they went out and raced. In the final turn of the race, both of them spun out. Ryan got a flat tire, Brandon threw it in reverse, and Brandon took the win in what was possibly the craziest final race in not just World Finals history, but Monster Jam history. This was straight up one of the craziest things I've ever saw in person, and I don't care what Tom and Dennis did in 2010, this is the best final round of any World Finals. I stayed out there and recorded the entire thing, and yeah, I was completely soaked. For 30 minutes to 1 hour, everyone sat waiting for the rain to clear. However, the two-wheel competition was delayed for the next day. Even as I was leaving the stadium, rain was still pouring down, and I even heard a lightning strike outside of the stadium when I was leaving. However, the next day, it was much nicer, and it was sunny, however with a small chance of rain. But then two-wheel happened. Brandon Vincent attempted a moon flip, but didn't successfully land it. Tyler Menninga did a bunch of moves on the pod, even though most of them didn't count. And the winner was of course Tom Mentz, who would succeed with a moon flip and actually land it, making him the two-wheel skills champion and giving him a 13th world title. This moment was also up there as one of the craziest things I've ever witnessed in person, by the way. Imagine if he held it after that, that would have been crazy. High jump really wasn't all that special except for Jim Kohler getting stuck in the center, defending champions Cynthia Gauthier and Tom Mentz breaking their rear tie rods, and Ryan Anderson and Son of a Digger ended up getting his first ever high jump championship. Freestyle was actually very good. The track wasn't cluttered, and really the only thing I didn't like were these weirdly placed backflip ramps and this small pod, but that's not a big deal. First few freestyles were Weston, Anderson, and Gravedigger with a backflip crash at the end. Jamie Garner and Overboard with this really cool save after a bad bounce from the pod. Also, here's the crash because I didn't catch it on camera. Racing champion Brandon Vinson breaks on the first hit, ending his run. Bryce Kenny and Mohawk Warrior breaks his truck after going for the center jump and rolls over. Charlie Pauken, back in his old ride Monster Mutt, Charlie would flip over onto his roof after a bad bounce on this small pod, and he somehow managed to save it and keep going. He slammed in reverse over the pod and took the lead. John Gordon in the bright orange Bad Company got a mini flip off of this car backflip ramp and walked it across the track, losing his windshield in the process. Another good moment was Mark Liss and El Toro Loco got the first successful backflip to moonwalk, and he held this for a very long time, walking it up the center jump and almost making it to the top. However, he wouldn't, and he broke his tie rod after a second backflip. Jim Kohler and Avenger broke the wheel after his signature big air, but because there wasn't a pond on the track, the officials took this slide thing and he went for a swim. Todd LeDuc and Blue Thunder did a backflip, rolled onto his roof, and saved it. And at the end, he went all ballistic, rolling his truck on top of the pod, and even though it was a cool run, it didn't take the lead from Charlie. Until Tom Meents went out onto the track, got big air off the center jump, and walked it across the track. He barely managed to get the moonwalk, and he got it. He then did this cartwheel save that I don't even know what to call, but he somehow didn't touch the wall, and performed a cyclone at the very end, taking the lead away from Charlie. Ryan Anderson and Son of a Digger attempted to take the professor down, however he couldn't, and Tom would win his 14th, and little did we know at the time, his final world title. The encore was just Adam Anderson jumping over 5 Gravediggers as a celebration for Gravedigger's 40th anniversary. Keep in mind, I was there, so I'm a little biased, but this was a good World Finals after 3 years of no action. A new racing track over and under, an amazing final race, Tom doubling down for the first time since 2002. Really, this World Finals will always mean something to me. And being a monster truck fan living in Hawaii at the time, I'm just so happy I got to see Tom's last shot at glory and an absolute gem that was racing. The only negatives are of course the rain, and the encores are just stunts and not really encores. However, I'm gonna give this World Finals a 10 out of 10. Next year, World Finals 22 was moved from Orlando to Nissan Stadium in Nashville, Tennessee. This World Finals really felt like an old one, and in the best way possible. The event logo was changed, and they really leaned into the theming of country music, with Low Cash even having a halftime performance planned. And weirdly, the event wasn't in March or May. Instead, it was moved to July 1st, just one day. This was when Monster Jam went back to the one-day format, and also the elevated start was back. But it wasn't Vegas style. It was more like elevated St. Louis style. I'll admit I was a bit disappointed by the racing track because it being St. Louis style was not something new, but regardless, the one-day format was meant to be one packed day full of action and duplicate trucks. All 5 Gravediggers had different colors, so you can actually tell who is who. I actually saw that announcement one day when I woke up, and I literally had to double check to make sure I wasn't still asleep. But starting the World Finals was high jump. Two-wheel was planned to be held first, however the rain delay for two-wheel, it would cause the show to go on hiatus for 2 hours. After that delay was over, high jump took place. I was somehow able to watch this live, and back then, this was the dark ages where you had the nightmare of trying to find Facebook live streams or just waiting till the next day to see anything World Finals related. But watching it live, the money conditions I could tell were making it really difficult for trucks to hit the ramp, but also made it more entertaining. The champion ended up being Ryan Anderson and Son of a Digger with a height of 28.6 feet. Two-wheel was an absolute shit show. Though it's not Monster Jam's fault, obviously, the muddy conditions made it impossible for any truck to get traction on anything else that wasn't from the backflip container. Tyler Menninga had the best move so far with moonwalking the truck onto the pod before losing traction and dropping down. Same thing happened to Camden Murphy, and same with Weston Anderson with what I would like to consider the lowest score in World Finals history that isn't a DNF, with a 1.521. That's how bad this competition was. It's just laughable. Tom Meents went from reverse to neutral. Armando Castro attempting what we all did in Steel Titans by doing a stoppie on the elevated start, and the final competitor John Zimmer Jr. in Terminal Velocity, only there because of online fans pushing him into the lineup. He held it on 2 front wheels for a long while, and when he reversed into the backflip, he did a little bounce instead of a flip. The score was close, but Tyler Menninga won the two-wheel skills competition. There's still controversy to this day about who should have won, so this was an absolutely bad way to kick off the World Finals. To kick off racing, there was actually a Thunderosaurus kickoff stunt to promote the very expensive Thunderosaurus drop, with Colton Eichelberger jumping over 9 trucks. And Colton Eichelberger successfully cleared all of them by one truck width, but not without slamming into the wall. Ignoring Zombie's little thing with its hand, I don't want to get into it, but if you know, you know. There were a few good races and a lot of upsets. Before we knew it, all 5 Gravediggers were taken out, and in the finals, it would come down to Tristan England and Earthshaker and Camden Murphy and Bakugan Dragonoid. Camden was stuck in first gear going down the elevated start, and Tristan had this massive lead into the final turn, leading to the 2017 Double Down Showdown winner, and continuing the trend of Camden Murphy getting second in everything. Tristan England crossed the line and won the World Finals, officially becoming a racing champion. Before freestyle, there was this halftime performance, but because it wasn't very interesting and it was a little underwhelming to what they were hyping it up to be, I'll just move on from it. Freestyle was yet another case of going into it, I really couldn't remember much aside from a few moments. But starting off the highlights was the man himself, Chris Kohler and Monster Mutt, with huge air, and immediately after getting a save, Chris also got a crazy ending where he landed on 2 wheels and he had enough momentum to get him back on all 4 BKT tires. Ryan Disharoon and Shaker flew nose first into the pod and broke the wheel. Todd Leduc and Neon Megalodon had a huge backflip that was later named to the Leduc Loop, and then he threw that truck back into the container to end off his run. Weston Anderson and Orange Gravedigger had a freestyle of a lifetime with big air hits off the racing lane, even clearing one of them, crushing the bus, and for the last hit, Weston hit the backflip, comboed it into a 1-tire moonwalk, and flipped over. Tyler Menninga, after locking up his left front tire, he went all crazy and rolled over at the ending of his freestyle. Cole Vernard and Black Pearl had good momentum throughout his run. His run really kicked off when he hit the backflip, shedded the whole body, and cross-threaded across the entire track, getting the lead from Todd Leduc and White Wall Megalodon. Speaking of Megalodon, Corey Rummel going for the second backflip didn't get the rotation. Colt got big air off the racing lane, and going for the backflip, he landed it, and then he hit the backflip again and got the lead with an 8.608. Many drivers attempted to take down Colt, like Adam Anderson and Gravedigger, Camden Murphy and Bakugan Dragonoid, with Camden being the absolute lunatic he was, rammed it into the side of the center jump and got a little corkscrew before crashing. Tom Mentz and Maxi rolled over after a failed backflip, and Ryan Anderson and Son of a Digger closed out freestyle, but even then that wasn't enough, as Colt Stevens won the freestyle title, going from the broadcast booth to a champion. Something that has never been done before in any sport ever. The encore featured a Max D 20th anniversary on. Wait, there wasn't an encore? Now revisiting this World Finals, I think it's really underrated. The negatives are mostly from the weather and two-wheel skills. Two-wheel was an absolute disaster. However, high jump had a bit more strategy because of the conditions. Racing was entertaining as it was mostly a wild card track. And though freestyle was good, the winner should have been either Weston or Cole Vernard, as this win was absolutely robbed. And now the encore or lack thereof. The 20th anniversary of Max D, and Tom didn't get any kind of celebration, which on Monster Jam's part is a terrible decision. And not to get sidetracked, but am I the only one that finds 2023 to be the saddest year for Tom Mentz? The passing of his father, announcing his retirement, and no encore for the last World Finals. I just find that really sad and seeing nobody point it out. But a massive positive is that the event really felt like a 2010s World Finals. That may be because of the theming of country music, which was done really well, and it's really got a lot of positives and negatives, but I'll give this World Finals a 7.5. Next year in May 2024, we saw the first World Finals to take place in SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles, and also the first World Finals to be live streamed to YouTube. As that year, Monster Jam started doing live streams of nearly all of their shows. This event was the one I was most excited to watch, as SoFi was among one of my bucket list venues of all time, and there was a new racing layout that featured an S style or a Z style. And my favorite part of the track also has to be the Hollywood sign at the end of the track. That's pretty awesome right there. Funny thing is that everybody thought that the trucks would go up into the stands, but unfortunately they didn't. But this track was pretty good for what it was, and it was guaranteed to be a truck killer in freestyle, and will also be the closest thing that Monster Jam will ever get to a back to school bash track. The racing track actually favored arena drivers more because of the tight turns, so that was gonna make for some interesting races. Oh yeah, and also the Showdown was brought back. Until now, the Showdown wasn't even used since 2019, but this time it went through another name change called the Last Chance Qualifier. A few highlights in LCQ were Tony Oaks in Period Blood Thunder Roris, Jamie Garner in Yellow Overboard, but it would be David Olfer in Velociraptor to win against his teammate Mike Christensen in Vendetta, and it would be Too Tall who made it to the big show. High Jump and Two Wheel were held during the pit party. A bit of an odd choice, but the action more than made up for that weird decision. High Jump champion Ryan Anderson and Son of a Digger went out early with a height of 28.1 feet, yet Jamie Garner in Yellow El Toro Loco climbed higher with a 28.5. The height kept climbing with Bryce Kenny and Mohawk Warrior, Tyler Menninga and Gravedigger. However, it would be Colt Stevens and Thunder Roars to walk away with the championship with a mind-boggling 31.3 feet. Yeah, High Jump was surprisingly really entertaining. Two Wheel featured multiple good hits from Tyler Menninga and Gravedigger. Tyler somehow managed to combo that into a wheelie, slap it, and got into a one-wheel wheelie and rolled it over. Armando Castro and El Toro Loco in his hometown got a stoppie, and with nowhere else to go, Armando said fuck it and floored it into the pod and got a complete backflip, landing it with a 9.656. Many more attempts were done from Tristan England and JCB Digatron, Weston Anderson and Orange Gravedigger, Blake Granger and Max D Fire, yet nobody could take down the hometown hero as Armando Castro won his first world title, and an absolutely well-deserved one at that. Before racing a kickoff stunt where previously fictional truck Sparkle Smash was actually driven by Caleb Blood and was brought to the actual circuit where it plowed through the wall of steel. Now we have racing, and oh boy, I really wanted to talk about this competition for so long, even before I started as ArenaPod. But now that we are finally at this point on the ladder, I finally can talk about it. Racing was just absolutely filled with upset after upset, and was actually some of the most entertaining races that I've ever seen. Literally anybody had a chance at winning the racing competition. If I literally talked about every single race, we would be here for hours, but getting to the final round, we had Zach Garner and Wildside against Tristan England and JCB Digatron. I could start yapping right now about how special this was, but I'll let the race play out and you can see it for yourself. Zach Garner had done the impossible. Zach beat the reigning racing champion and walked away as the racing champion in his World Finals debut. And he won it right in front of his father, Jamie. What made both an amazing competition, added an emotional layer for everyone. Everyone in the stands, everyone at home, everyone in the field, and even me writing this and talking about this right now, just watching this race just gives me goosebumps. And that's no joke. I can go on and on and on, but this World Finals final round was the best final round of all time. Yes, better than 22, better than 10, and I'm gonna stick by this until the day I die. Seriously though, what a show by Zach Garner, and massive congratulations to the Garner family. That was well deserved. Before Freestyle was a sort of halftime stunt to promote the new season of Fortnite, where Charlie Pauken took the Fortnite truck, jumped over the bus, rolled over on the turning berm, and still going, Charlie crushed the bus that was more than likely made out of cardboard, and ended what was one of the weirdest collaborations I've ever seen with Monster Jam. I know Epic was making Showdown and that's why they were advertised, but it's a huge missed opportunity that we didn't have Tom or Dennis added to Fortnite. Like, literally imagine doing the Chucky dance over someone's corpse, but nope, we got nothing, and that's kinda sad. Last competition was Freestyle. Now, listen here, the track was good for racing, however, to quote a certain Aussie, if you have a good racing track, Freestyle is gonna suck. And I feel like we learned this the hard way. First few trucks that came out and laid it out were Kristen Anderson and Pink Gravedigger, who broke after landing the mini flip, Dalton Widener and Jurassic Attack with a lot of good momentum, Cole Stevens and Thunder Roars with this save at the start of his run, and with no drive, he had a bad landing on the backflip and wouldn't be able to save it. Tyler Menninga and Purple Gravedigger did a clean backflip to moonwalk combination, backflipped off the ski jump, and that was enough to take the lead. With the track becoming a truck killer, some of the bigger names that got taken out were Jim Kohler and Avenger, even though he was doomed at the start because he was going out early, Barry Musauer and Zombie, Adam Anderson and Gravedigger, Tristan England and JCB Diggatron, and even Ryan Anderson and Son of a Digger. All of these guys were big names and heavy hitters, and they were all bitten by the track. And Tyler Menninga would walk out of that building as the freestyle champion, and officially becoming a two-time world champion. I'll say it right now, this World Finals was a banger. I love the storylines of Armando Castro winning skills with this absurd move. I liked that Zach Garner won racing in his debut at the World Finals, but freestyle was lackluster. A ton of trucks rolled over or broke early. This does hinder my enjoyment of the event as I was watching this live, because literally, because of what was happening in freestyle, I often found myself getting bored. And keep in mind, I'm a diehard fan. How the hell do you get bored watching the World Finals? I literally don't know how, but every competition that year was a 10 out of 10. But factoring in freestyle, this lowers my event enjoyment down to a 9. Still pretty high, but freestyle could have been way better. And now we have the most recent World Finals, and the first ever to take place in Salt Lake City. To say that this World Finals was polarizing would be an understatement. First off, the confusing format was the biggest talking point, as it involved splitting racing and freestyle and having them on two separate nights. The backlash for this was so bad that Monster Jam literally had to turn off the comments on Instagram, as everyone was basically saying that it was a normal stadium event, and I agree, this format was stupid. But second of all, the best parts that were announced was that the event was being held on July 4th, and the U-turn for the St. Louis style that they keep using, it was up in the stands. I really was looking forward to this World Finals, and unfortunately, because Jamie Sullivan had an injury she sustained, the LCQ was going to have two winners, which ended up being Cole Vennard in Black Pearl and Matt Cody in Gravedigger Stars and Stripes. The flip-flop truck had a debut encore with a grind rail stunt, which was okay, and everything else about it was bad, just pretty boring. The JCB Smash Spot stunt was awesome, but not much happened apart from me thinking that Tristan died. Two-wheel skills was fine. It had 2 rounds, and JCB Diggatron's first move was in round 1, and that made him win. That really tells you all you need to know about it. High jump was very underwhelming, as the reigning champion got last, and Ryan Anderson got yet another easy championship with a height of 23.2 feet, so not even higher than a normal house. Racing involved Todd LeDuc, who was literally announcing his retirement one day ago, beating another one of my favorite drivers, Zach Garner in Wildside. And with Zach having steering issues, Todd LeDuc cruised Megalodon Stars and Stripes to the line and to one last world title before retiring. Freestyle had a lot of good hits from Mike Pagliarulo in Excalibur with this rollover and even 2 backflips. John Zimmer Jr. in Terminal Velocity had a ragged edge run the whole way through. Weston Anderson in Gravedigger Red Primer had a crazy crash at the end. Zach Garner in Wildside had the most ragged edge run in my opinion and was the closest thing we are ever gonna get to another Tom Meents run. Like, look at what he did to the tire. Colt Steven got big air and had one of the most violent crashes I've ever seen, which even sent his forelink flying in the air. Blake Granger and Monster Dalmatian would have a consistent run, and after shedding the body, he hit the backflip, securing the lead. But the ending freestyle of Tyler Menninga in Gravedigger had the most highlights as he went for a moonwalk. Yeah, I forgot about that. And that paved the way for Blake Granger and Monster Dalmatian to win his first and as of now only world title before an arena pod bit him and Monster Jam promoted him to a fan. I'll say right now, this world finals was good. I may have glossed over everything, but I already made a video about this 1 year ago and I strongly encourage you to go watch it if you want a full breakdown. But this world finals wasn't bad, just half of it was okay. The opening stunts, 2-wheel, and high jump were just fine, but the truly good competitions were racing and freestyle, and freestyle I thought was the best part. Literally everyone was giving it their all, and I liked that. I just feel as if the winner should have been Zach Garner or John Zimmer Jr. though. And another thing about freestyle is that some say the ending was bad, but I thought it was kind of funny. As much as I do feel bad for Tyler though. Not the best world finals, but pretty respectable for Salt Lake's first world finals. I'll give it an 8 out of 10. So, that ends the World Finals countdown, and now we have World Finals 25 taking place in a few days. If you seriously stuck around for the entirety of this little series that I did, I need to thank you, and I mean that. This series was a lot of fun to make, and I also want to give a special thanks to Hayden Romo, or as you know, MustJamRC, for helping out on this video, and also on this project that I'm gonna announce right here. So, I've been wanting to give back to y'all for supporting me, and my custom ArenaPod power drive. So, me and Hayden have made these. At the Must Jam World Finals 25 pit party on July 4th only, I will be giving away 5 ArenaPod power drive diecasts completely for free. All you need to do to enter is draw fan art featuring the truck power drive and or any character that I created, such as Aston, Jerry, Arcus, AJ, or some combination. If you do draw fan art, bring it to the pit party on the 4th, and you're one of the first 5 to spot me and show your artwork, you will be given 1 power drive diecast. And if you are the first person to find me and show your art, you'll receive an ArenaPod Power Drive Stars and Stripes, currently the only one in the world. We're limiting to them as 1 truck per person as only 5 were made, and once they're gone, they're gone. If you do still draw fan art and didn't get a truck, didn't go to the event, or didn't find me, share it with me through Instagram. I will be making a World Finals 25 video and I'll feature it over there, just so nobody's left out. If you do want a truck and don't draw art, then you can't get one, I'm sorry. But if you do want something signed or want me to do speed draws of any of my personas, then I'm more than happy to. Again, big thank you to my best friend Hayden Romo, as he was kind enough to help me out on all of this, and I can't wait to see your artwork. I'll be at every single pit party, and good luck on finding me at the 4th. I'm ArenaPod, and I will see you guys at World Finals 25.